What was the craziest plot line that you had in Melrose Place?
I think with the kidnapping of my baby, I mean, it just kind of went on and on. Just the fact that the baby belonged to a drug dealing, horrible guy, and then that I had the baby, and then it was stolen by his parents, I think, and then, well, Kimberly first. Marcia Cross
Right.
played crazy Kimberly. And then the parents finally took it, and then I got it back. Oh, and I killed the baby's father, of course. I finally gave baby Austin away. So that went on for a while. That was pretty crazy.
Of
Yeah.
course, and that story happens almost every day all across the country.
Yeah.
From the heart of Hollywood, it's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show with Patrick Labyorteaux.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux Show. Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.
Tonight's episode, Daphne Zuniga.
Patrick Labyorteaux Show. He's the one you gotta know.
Okay, you know her as Princess Vespa from Spaceballs, Joe Reynolds from Melrose Place, Victoria from One Tree Hill, and Allison from The Sure Thing. I know her as my one-time make-believe girlfriend. Please welcome Daphne Zuniga. Yay!
Thank you very
Welcome.
much. Oh, it's been a while.
It sure has. So let's set the table here for this crazy, crazy, out-of-this-world romantic relationship
I think I have a
I
feeling.
shared.
I'm going to, may I share? I know it's your show
Yeah.
and you're in Riverside. And I just want to share how I ended up here, okay, from my point of view.
Absolutely. We'd love
Okay.
to hear it.
All right. So a couple of weeks ago, a very good friend of mine, Brian Verrett is his name. He grew up here in LA, and he loves TV and vintage TV. We always send each other memes and videos about like the 70s, the 80s, and just to keep ourselves like happy and like good fun news back in the good old days. And so he sent me this meme or video one morning, but I was so busy. I'm doing a lot of work on the house, and I'm just like, so I went to our electricity was out. Went to the local library. When was the last time you were in a library? I love libraries. So I'm sitting in there, and it's very quiet because it's a library. And I'm sitting there, and I get a text from Brian that says, "Look at the video I sent you this morning." And I'm like, I will, Brian. And I'm like, okay, I need a break from doing all this other research. So I look at it, and I see your face, and it's a video while you're describing this story. And I'm going, okay. He went, and this guy, this very handsome white-haired gentleman, went to a party back when he was a kid in the hills at this nice house, and then it was the home of, and I knock on the door, and I'm early, and this is what you're saying, and there's parking, so it must be early, but it didn't seem like it was that early because I'm not that much of a nerd. So you showed up closer to the time. As you know, LA, we have to be half an hour late to everything. So you show up, and apparently you say the door opens up, and it's Daphne Zuniga, this house in the hills, who's throwing this party. And you had heard about this party from a friend. So then you tell the story how Daphne Zuniga goes, "Oh, hi, yeah. Oh, you're early. Come on in and help me with some stuff. I don't know, an ice cooler and beers." I have no idea, but anyway, I'm dying laughing now. I'm like, it's about me. And I don't remember anything, but we're in the library, so I have to step out because I'm crying laughing. You're making my day, my morning. I'm just like, what? And then you describe this whole thing, and now you're like, now Daphne and I are setting up for this party that we're having. And I'm just going on, I'm just laughing so hard. I'm crying, and I go, "Brian, where did you get this? I don't remember this. What happened? And who was the guy that showed up, apparently, that crushed all your dreams?" And I threw my arms around. Anyway, so I'm dying for you to fill in some gaps. But when he told me that, that you also are an actor, and I remember those days of like parties in the hills that we would all just show up with where we're like parking on these windy streets that like can barely even get through up in the hills. And it was my party, and I wasn't a real party girl that I remember. So I think it was probably the only party I ever threw. And I don't remember like who you came with or who you sent you there or who the guy was. This like you described this tall guy that showed up, and I threw my arms around him. I'm like, who was that? So if you have any other memories, that's what I would love. Anyway, when
Well,
Brian said that you had a
that's a
podcast,
wonderful that's like the ultimate response that you throw these videos out into the world, and half the time don't ever think that that dream girl still exists or is gonna see it. And so I'm freaking out. I get a message from your friend, and then I get a message from you, and it's like, I'm like 12 years old again. It's Daphne Zuniga. And it's like, how it works when like you have a first name and a last name, but for that moment it's Daphne Zuniga. There's only one name. It's like, oh, it's Daphne Zuniga. It's like the full name. It's like full credit. So
and
yeah,
you're being regressed. That's so funny.
right. It's just like, it's so amazing. And so you reached out, and so I'm so glad you're here. But yeah, it was a friend of mine, Cam, who I know two Cams, and I keep coming up with the other guy's last name, and I can't come up with my friend's last name, which is ridiculous. But it was a party in the hills, and I got there early. You were so nice. I mean, first of all, some guy shows up, you're not ready, no one's there at the party, and it was just like you were welcoming and kind. And I mean, yeah, I did help set up the party with you, but it was like that last little bit. When
What
you're
did
putting
you do?
together
Do
all
you
the stuff.
remember? Were you like,
Yeah,
I
you
just
had me
picture
still
you in the
like, you had me
garage
still.
getting coolers.
Yeah, exactly. I was getting coolers, I was getting beers, I was putting ice in coolers, icing down drinks, bringing out snacks. You had it all set up, but you were
But I
working.
love how you told the story. You're like, so now I'm like picturing maybe I'll be her boyfriend, and now we're throwing a party, and let's see. It
That
was
was
so
exactly what was
sweet.
going on in my head, though, too. I mean, look, I was going
No.
to a party to meet girls, and it's like, well, this is going really well. And it's like, and I don't know how realistic this was, but I swear to you, it was a robe, and you had your hair in a towel. You were still getting ready. I mean, it wasn't sexy. It wasn't like lingerie, but it was like, I was there early, or you were running late. I don't know. But you were
If I
very,
was
very
really a
cool.
fancy celebrity in the hills, I would have had like a handyman. I would have had my little, probably like, catering team or something. But no, it was just a little.
We were
And that's
just
how
kids. I mean, it was
we
it
were
was a house
kids.
party, and it was a
Yeah,
nice house. And as
yeah.
far as the guy, I don't know. I mean, they were all actors there. Could have been any actor that I just immediately saw was either,
Okay, so
well, this
let's
is
narrow
not
it down.
happening.
Do you know what year? No, it wasn't happening. Because I don't remember you. Sorry, but you are very handsome. I'm shocked at myself,
I
but
appreciate that.
clearly.
Thank you.
So Patrick, what year was this? Can you narrow it
Early
down to us?
90s,
Yeah,
early in that, like
yeah,
late 80s, early 90s type of thing.
yeah. Okay, I was just trying to think
And
who it was.
it was in the Hollywood Hills, but like over towards Griffith. I don't know where you were at that time, but
I
it
was
was
in
so
Laurel
funny because you
Canyon.
mentioned those tiny little streets. It ended up at that party at the end of the night. My buddy Cam, again, he's one of those guys that has a Jeep with with a winch on the front of the Jeep. He actually
Okay.
had to winch some girl's car out of her parking spot because it was on the hill. So
That sounds like Laurel Canyon. It could have been anywhere. I always had a house in Laurel Canyon, a big white, not that big, but a nice white modern house. My first house that I got to buy, and
that sounds because this was modern. I remember lots of glass and a very high ceiling at some point.
yes, yeah, that was
Okay.
that. Yeah, but
So
here we are.
there's our meet cute.
Act 1 Beginnings.
But let's
Yeah.
start with you since it's about you. Why did you decide you wanted to be an actress, and how did that happen?
Okay, so we're going way back beyond our first meeting. Way back. Well, Um, I always knew I wanted to act, always. So I was born in San Francisco, grew up in Berkeley, and I was always just had a lot of energy and always creating things, doing skits at home. It helped that we didn't have a TV, so
Yeah.
just in that, I didn't spend my time. I didn't come home from school and just sit in front of the TV because we didn't have one. I came home from school and got the neighbor kids to rehearse for our dancing group that I started and our singing group. Well, it was supposed to be a singing group, but we didn't know how to sing, so we just turned it into a dancing group. But as long as we
Was
were
it a dancing
performing.
group or was it a dancing crew?
Oh, well, this was way, way long ago, so we just called it a group, not a
Okay.
crew. That's too hip. So we just danced to like the Jackson Fives. But the point is, like, I created. I kept making those things happen, and then I finally got into my first acting class in seventh grade, and whatever 13, and we were living in Canada for a year. So I got into it up there, and I just never stopped. Then I went to another school for 8th grade, and then I got into a legitimate acting. I took theater in my junior high, but then I also enrolled in American Conservatory Theater in San Francisco because we were back in the Bay
You were
Area.
super serious about this.
Oh yeah, and I got in. We auditioned for that, and I got into the young conservatory they had. So we would take the public bus across the bridge because we were in the East Bay in Berkeley, and we'd take it into San Francisco, and I just loved it. I really found my people, my place. Stage, behind the curtains, makeup, costumes. Just that's where I felt alive. Just any theater anywhere. I would do it in church. I would do it at wherever. And then I did kept doing it in high school.
I'm sorry, when you're this young, sometimes there's a person that turns you on as far as like a performance or an actor or actress. Was there anyone like that was like, I like that person, I want to do what they do, or was it your actual physical involvement in these productions?
Well, there was a person, but it was a teacher. So in that class, when I was 13 or 14 in 7th grade, I was a troublemaker before that. It was the 60s. My parents were divorced. My dad wasn't living with us anymore. A lot of chaos going on. My mom was working, so she wasn't home. I was a latchkey kid. There was no structure, and so I just kind of took out all that angst in the wrong ways, getting into fights, talking back to the teacher. And a wonderful, very smart teacher came to me and said, Daphne, I'm going to pull you out of class. And I said, oh, are we going to the principal's office again? So he took me downstairs and he said, no, I'm taking you to drama class. We were in Canada, so he said, drama. I'm taking you to drama class. And I said, what's that? And he left me here and he told the teacher, I'm leaving this student here. Please have her for the afternoon. And I started doing theater games. And I was like, what is this? Oh my gosh, so that was it. So that was my teacher. Mr. Knorr was his name. I tried to look him up since. It was so long ago. So I don't know if he's even still with us. But that was, and ever since that class that he took me into, instead of the principal's office, every school I was in afterwards, I looked for it. In fact, when I was in high school, we moved from Berkeley to Vermont, New England. Whole story.
Who are you trying to get away from? I mean, that's literally, you cannot get further away from Berkeley than Vermont.
Exactly. So that was a culture shock for sure. But they didn't have a theater department. And I show up, and I'd been to ACT, Young Conservatory. I'd been doing these plays since I'm in 8th grade. I'm now in 10th grade. And I'm like, what do you mean you don't have a theater department? And I went to my English teacher and I said, I need a theater department. I don't play field hockey. I don't play tennis or soccer or all your other sports. I do theater. And so she talked to the faculty and they brought in a theater teacher, and I got a theater department started.
You're not just a self-starter. You create the infrastructure for you to be able to do what you want. That's awesome.
It was this naive need. It was a necessity. Because my mom had moved me across the country to the woods of Vermont. I was furious already, and I was like, you don't understand. So pleasantly, that wasn't that difficult. They responded to my need for that, and so I did theater there this was in Woodstock, Vermont. And
I'd say this is obvious, but I don't know if it is or not, so forgive me. Obviously, it sounds like you had so much emotion that part of the deal with acting is it's the one place where we don't suppress it. It's kind of like enjoyed to be in contact with it. Was that one of the connection points for you?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And, there's my whole life since, there's a whole interior world, and that we as human beings have, and it's as complex and rich and infinite as the outside world is. But our culture doesn't historically invite that or even want us to deal with it. It wants you just deal with the outside to fit in, to not be a pain in the ass, to not get in trouble. You have to go by the rules of our outside world of the rules of society. But it really shuts off this well of being a human being. So what I really loved about acting class was that it invited us to go in, and specifically in, okay, it's not enough that you're sad. Why? Pull up this and that. And I mean, I was in 3 classes at a time in LA when I first got here. And I would just go from one to the next and learn all these different exercises. And I know it's because it invited the inside, the emotional interior of who I was and who all of us were. That's what I love about actors, that we dare to go inward. But the hard part about being an actor is that normal, everyday society and life doesn't ask for it, doesn't really have a place for it. So you need therapy and you need acting class to deal with who you are, because if you're going to go deep, if you're going to, before, it's for all artists, I think all artists might feel this, because the world doesn't invite art. It invites you to go spend money in the mall or go do something. So art, if you are an artist, if you have this inclination to explore and express, you need an outlet. So I needed that, and I discovered it, when I was very young. I'm very lucky to have discovered that.
Also, but there's a lot of people that discover something but don't make the connection or don't understand what it's doing for them, that's the thing that they need. The fact that when you hit Vermont and said, this isn't happening, I need A, B, and C, that's pretty self-determined in a fantastic way. And I think probably, is the reason why you're still around. Because in Hollywood, once you get here, and we'll talk about this later, because the 80s were amazing for women in the sense that they had a real good idea of exactly what they wanted from you, and that was it. Mm-hmm. And so it's like for you to work through that to get to do other things and to create different characters, it was a real struggle for girls in the 80s, I think. I mean, just watching it. But here you are, you're still... So from Vermont, then you come back on your own to Hollywood? Or how did you get into professional acting?
Acting. So when I graduated high school in Vermont at Woodstock High School, I applied to UCLA. I knew I wanted to be in LA or New York, but I also applied to Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. So, but that was kind of my third choice because it wasn't in one of those 2 places. And since I was from California originally, my dad still lived out here in Northern California. I knew I'd feel comfortable in LA and in California. I knew California, and I never really spent time in New York City, so it kind of scared me. And I went down to New York. My mom and I went down to NYU. So I applied to NYU, UCLA, and Carnegie Mellon for the theater department. Went down to NYU to do an audition. I think it's probably 2 monologues, right?
Right.
For NYU. And on the way to NYU audition, I was flashed by some guy in a car on the West Side Highway. And I tell my mother, some guy flashed me, lifted himself up into the window while he's driving.
There's some skill involved.
I'm telling you. And I looked at, again, I'm 17 years old, and I just went, Mom, I'm not going here. I thought this is that. So that was that determined I wasn't going to go to NYU. I just didn't know New York. It really scared me, and that validated it. So, and meanwhile, my mom's like, get the camera. I'm not getting the camera. Let's go home. So I did do the audition, but I didn't pursue that. I don't even remember. I don't even think I got in there. But then we went to Carnegie Mellon, and I was like, Pittsburgh was kind of gray and not my thing. So I was like, let's go back. Let's go to UCLA. So I came to UCLA, and then I was in my junior year, and my roommate at the time she was doing all the main stage theaters at UCLA, and she got an appointment or a audition to be with an agent. Uh-huh. So back then you would audition, you'd like set up a scene. Like, don't you remember back in the casting in the early 80s, at least for me, they'd say, well, what happened was to audition for this writers and artists agency, they said, bring in a scene. So Amy and I were doing the scene just for regionals, competitions. So we brought in our scene and we had it down pat because we did it for UCLA, right? So we come into these agents and then casting offices, and we brought in like cookies because that was part of the scene, and we put our little boombox over here, and we asked God knows the head of what producers, I don't even know who it was anymore, but I was like, can we just move this side table over here so can you sit? And I was like telling, and I'm sure for them it was cool. It was a break in their afternoon, it was different. So we would do the scene and we just had amazing response. And so writers and artists left a message on our answering machine saying congratulations.
That to the kids earlier.
Yeah, right? That you'd race home to get to check your messages. Do I have any auditions? Did I hear from my agent? So they said to both of us, we'd like to sign you both.
We'll be back after these messages. Have you ever thought about becoming an actor and making your friends and family jealous? Well, have I got a deal for you. Here at Working Actors School, we offer many different classes so you can become a famous actor like me. And we have a delightful selection of classes, including Adult Weekly. It's every Wednesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. Here you will learn how to be an actor with other adults. How do we do it? How is it possible? Is it a miracle? Yes, it is. It's a miracle called Zoom. We teach everything online so you can become a famous actor and impress your friends and family. So if you want to be a famous actor and make your friends and family jealous, then you need to sign up at Working Actors School. You can get a hold of us at workingactorschool.com. You can sign up for classes at workingactorschool.com. You can make a reservation for the class online at workingactorschool.com. So come check us out. It's workingactorschool.com. Act 2. Success.
What's your thought on the Sure Thing, your character, how you got into that, and the result of that?
That was my first year working. So after I got the agent, that was my first year out. I had done a horror film I did for Paramount. I did some TV stuff, and then I was on Family Ties. I did a couple episodes of Family Ties, and they were going to bring me on as a recurring or a regular as Michael J. Fox's girlfriend, and then I got this. And so I auditioned for this because there was no contract with the Family Ties show. So I got this, and I just remember reading it, going, like, laughing and loving it. I mean, really, the movie's good because the script is good. You got to start with a good script. And it was so good. I couldn't put it down. It was so tight. The humor was funny. It wasn't a lot of cheesy funny. I felt the difference between this script and this movie and other ones kind of like that is that it wasn't like, yes, Nicolette Sheridan played, the Sure Thing, the blonde babe, tan and gorgeous in a bikini. And she's on the poster, of course, and that's what John Cusack's character is that she's a sure thing,
Right.
So he goes across the country to go meet her. But it wasn't like it was TNA. I mean, that's the theme, right. But it really was about these two characters. And so he's thrown in this car, this ride share with me, totally opposite, this completely controlled, smart, New England, girl, Allison Bradbury, and then Gibb. I mean, even the names are hilarious, right? They're like, that describes that character, and this is Allison. And so that's why I think the movie turned out that way. And then you add in Rob Reiner, who was really an actor's director. In my experience, we just had so much fun. I mean, and then
thank you for bringing that into it. How is he different as a director than what you would end up working with? Because there's a lot of different types of directors. How did you find? Yeah. How did he?
So Rob would be like, "Okay, guys, he's like laughing and smiling through the scene because he understands human behavior. He understands, crushes and falling in love." And he said he cast me because I reminded him of someone he was in love with or had a crush in college, maybe, or something like that. So, but when he would do a scene, he would come in there with us and say, "Okay, and then we'd come up with stuff, like adding on in the moment. So you felt like when you're talking to him that he's part of the group of you, right?
Uh-huh.
and then Tim Robbins, of course, was in that and was hilarious as well. So
Right. Him and Marianne Persky, they play these
yeah,
show tune singing like couple that again was ripped off in 1,000 other movies of the show tune singing cross country people that you get stuck with in a car. It's like all of
yes.
these memes were in this one movie.
Yes, yes. And so they were, so this, Rob just delighted. A lot of directors can be very good at what they do, right? Like they're in charge of the whole thing. So, and I directed one movie in my life for a lifetime. So I know now what that's like. That's like nothing but questions and decisions all day long. All day long. You
Yeah,
wake
you're
up
like a
and
giant filter. You have to filter every department.
decision, everything,
Yeah.
right? Well, do you want this gun or that gun? You want this sheriff's badge or that sheriff's badge? Should that be green or lime green or pale green? And on and on and on. And the clothes, this and that. So there's a lot as a director that you have to know. But when you have an actor's director, they have to know all that. But then they also come in and get excited and have the energy and the emotional excitement to like just find the tone and the beats of the scene with you. And so like we would do it one way, we'd talk about it, we would do it, and then he would say, let's say cut, I think, and then he would come back and say, okay, let's do this again. But he'd have another idea, but it was like the three of you were conspiring. That's an actor's director. Like they get it
That's
from
a
the
big,
emotional side.
if you feel the director is on your side, half your job is done because then you're wanting to please that director and with your performance in a way that if it's adversarial where you're trying to prove your performance,
Yeah.
it's just something that's different. Now I've
And
never
also the way
worked
they communicate you, as you know, an
Uh-huh.
actor's director, a non-actor's director is, and some directors do take acting classes so that they kind of can see what our process, a little bit about a process, right? Because as
Right.
opposed to coming to you, you just feel like it's coming from the outside. So then you have to like interpret what they're trying to say. You listen to them and you don't know what they're saying. So then you have to try to interpret it, translate it into your brain and go, I think he's saying, then you have to make it something that you understand, like an emotional adjustment, or maybe not too much, or whatever. It's just different.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
every director's somewhere on the scale of being able to communicate to actors, and I don't think there's like an actor's director and a non-actor's director. I just think like there's different
Well, it's the way
levels
they
of
communicate. I had this guy
communicate.
direct me. I was doing a TV series, and they had this English guy who used to be an actor. He's now directing. He's an older guy, and he gave me my favorite direction ever. He goes, "I don't want to taste it. I want to smell it."
Oh, nice.
Oh, okay. It's like you
I
kind of get
know.
a sense of like how much you're
Yeah.
supposed to give. Now, I've
Yeah,
never
but
worked
when
with Cusack, and I've always heard good things about him. What was that like? Because you're both really young. I mean, he's
young.
done Weird Science or some other thing, but not like a lead. And it would
He
be
had
between me
done
and him and Say Anything as well. I say me and him. I don't know. It could
right.
be a million other guys, but like this was like a big deal. How was it like for him? For
He
you
was
to work with
16
him?
when he shot The Sure Thing. So I was
16?
yeah, I was 21, I believe. Yeah, because I did Vision Quest. I turned 21 on Vision Quest, and that was either before or after this movie. I don't remember, but they're all the same year. So I was either 20 or 21 on The Sure Thing, and he was 16. So he had a tutor on set. That's how young he was, and he had done what's the 16 Candles?
16 Candles. Yeah.
Yeah,
No, that's
John
right.
Hughes
Not
movie.
Weird Science.
He had
16 Candles.
He had a
Well,
part
that
in that.
explains it because I'm watching this the other night and I'm like, well, he's a lot younger. He looks a lot younger than I thought, but that's why.
Yeah.
Boy, what a
He-
great performance for a 16-year-old. Geez.
Yeah, he was great. Well, he comes from a theater family in Chicago, in Evanston,
Right.
outside of Chicago. And, of course, his sister acts and his parents were in it, I guess. And he's from all that. Jeremy Piven was his best buddy back then. He had a cameo in The Sure Thing. He was throwing
Well,
a
Steve
football with
Pink's
him or
in it.
something.
John Putch, I guess, from
Yep.
All in the
Putch.
Family. I know I'm jumping all the way around here, but all these things are firing off different neurons. I did a movie with Mel Brooks called I was in Blazing Saddles, and so I got to work with Mel Brooks. I
Oh.
did summer school with Carl Reiner. And so Carl would tell me stories about him writing and Robbie coming in and buzzing him. And I'm like, oh, wait, Robbie is Rob Reiner. It's like, just this weird
Robbie.
thing. Carl and Mel are best friends. Did you working with Rob Reiner have anything to do with you being in Spaceballs, or was that completely different?
No, I think so. I think either his dad came to set, Carl Reiner, or Rob mentioned, there's this new girl, because when you first get your first year out, you're like the new girl or the new guy,
Yeah.
and then he really liked working with me, I guess, and so he recommended, and I think Carl told Mel. So I went up for Spaceballs shortly after, might have been a year later. This was in, I don't know, 84. Then that was in 85 or 6. So, but I know that was how it was done. I think I've even heard Mel say that Carl mentioned it, or Robbie Reiner mentioned
Robbie,
it.
yeah, isn't that funny? It's just such a weird. We were rehearsing for summer school at Paramount, and he says, "Oh, my boy Robbie's movie's coming out. We should all see it. It's called Stand By Me." It's like, okay, it's like, it's just so weird.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just try to get my head
Wait,
around
summer
some
school.
of this stuff.
So was Courtney in that? Courtney
Yeah, I know Courtney
Smith?
from summer school. That's how I know Courtney.
Oh,
I
you
met
do know
Laura
her.
back in the '90s, but I
So has
used to
Courtney
work
been
out
on
with Doug
this?
Savant. What's that?
So has Courtney been on this podcast?
No.
You should get her on.
I would love her on. I don't have a. I mean, I should tell her. I
I'll
should
tell her.
Absolutely.
I'll tell
let
her
her.
that I
Let her
did it.
know. I would love to. I would absolutely love to have her because we've had a lot of the guys from summer school, but none of the girls yet. And
That was one of those iconic 80s movies. Like you kept saying, that was a real decade of young parts for all of us. We all went up on
Right.
lots of different things and got, whatever we ended up getting. But in hindsight, here we are all older and we can look back on the 80s. Those were very archetypal, sort of, most of them were limited characters. So
Right.
the girls, as an actress, you played, and you didn't realize that they were stereotypical and limited. You just, for me anyway, you just thought, well, I'm the smart girl or I'm the bombshell, and I was always the smart
Right.
girl or the best
Right,
friend.
and
Those are like the three.
And of course,
best
with Hollywood, the smart girl still has to be a bombshell, but hide a sneaky bombshell, right? It's like put glasses on her, put her hair in a ponytail.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's sort of like, because exactly kind of like my whole big thing at the beginning of this, which is it's what you saw everywhere. So it wasn't like you felt like you were breaking into or breaking out of a mold, to demand a different character.
Right.
But like with what you were saying about the sure thing, what we loved about the other actors on the show about summer school was, I've been in movies where, where girls are topless and all the crazy 80s things. Summer school is not like that. Summer school is like a good-hearted feeling movie, just like
Who
The
directed
Sure
it?
Thing. Carl Reiner. I mean,
Oh,
it wasn't
Carl
a
did. That's
mistake.
right. That's what you were saying. Yes, yes.
Yeah, so it's sort
That's
of like
right.
we've got
Yeah.
Carl Reiner directing Summer
Yeah.
School, Rob
Yeah.
Reiner directing The Sure
Both.
Thing.
Yeah.
And
Right.
then in the internet it says that Meg Ryan was one of your roommates. If that's
Yeah,
true,
she was a
did
she was a roommate.
steal that whole performance of yours for
What, the
with Harry Met
orgasm?
Sally?
No, that was all her. That was not my fake orgasm. Oh, is that not what you meant? Yeah, no, she went on to do, of course, Harry Met Sally. She's, yes, a very good friend. And she, I mean, I've never talked to her really about that scene, but I just read about
Well, no,
how
I was
that,
just saying that you and Allison,
Yeah.
Allison and her character,
Sally.
There's
Yeah.
so many Sally. There's so many levels that kind of play the same. The
Yeah.
trip across the country that
Yeah.
she takes by herself, and it's just all very, very similar.
But this is a romantic comedy structure. I mean, The Sure Thing was based, I don't know if it was based on, but the writers, for sure had seen, what was the one from the 40s with Clark Gable and Claudette Colbert? Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting right
It
now.
Happened One Night?
It Happened One Night.
Yeah.
They're on the road together. They don't get
Right.
along. They're trying to separate that little cabin with a sheet and like, don't talk to me and don't. So it's a wonderful, setup for these opposites to fall in love. So it kind of went every generation. The Harry Met Sally was in the 90s. Mine was in the 80s. The one before, there are plenty of them like that. And it's such a fun story to watch. These opposites slowly chip away at each other.
And
Start
it's also
sharing a
it is,
meal.
but it's fun if it's done. And again, I know I'm mooning all over this movie, but it was one of my favorites when it came out, and just having rewatched it, going, you guys did a really good version of it. I mean, it takes a lot to take, two characters and keep them interesting, and to allow for the growth along the way, which, again, sneaky. It's like Cusack. Yeah, his character grows in as far as understanding that there's more to a relationship, but it's your character that has to physically manifest a different personality, in a way of like unlocking that personality. His personality is similar through the whole movie, very entertaining, but yours is like you're locked down, you're shut down, and you have to open up by the end of the film. And I thought you did a really good job, because you could do it like really in a poor way or over the top, and I thought it was well modulated, I guess.
Well, I think I was very well cast, because I'd like to say, oh, I worked so hard on this and that, but I was living in Vermont, not a couple years earlier, right? So I was very kind of proper East Coast. Because I moved so much as a child, I was a chameleon. So when I left Berkeley, I got rid of the stupid tie-dye skirts, and I was like, here are the houndstooth blazers, and you want me to wear what kind of cowlick and what sweater, Icelandic sweater, and what, like, I'll doing it, So I was really fit in, and that role came not too many years later, very shortly after. So
well, you were flashed on the way to New York, and you're flashed
and
on
I
the way
was
to California.
So yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, I think it was really the trust in Rob. I mean, and the fun that I had. It's make believe.
Now, here's a question I don't get to ask too often, because usually a first couple of jobs, like, yeah, you did the horror film, and I think everyone's done one of those.
Yeah.
But you start off with The Sure Thing, co-lead Rob Reiner, really good movie, very successful, did great. Did that ruin? I mean, then you move on to Mel Brooks, but I mean, did it ruin you for like what to expect on a big time movie set? Like it was such a good
I would
experience?
say my first 3 years out, I worked with Rob Reiner, Mel Brooks. I worked with Lucille Ball in there somewhere.
What'd you work with Lucy on?
Well, so Lucy was her last movie was called Stone Pillow, and she played a homeless woman, and I was the young woman, and the young girl, Clara. No, what the heck was my name? I don't remember. That might have been her name, but I worked to get her off the streets. So.
How did you find? Again,
I've spent the last 30 years trying to recreate my first 3 years. Let's do that, okay? Let's just say what it is. I had such a great time. I was so lucky.
When I was a kid, I played Lucy's grandnephew in a movie called Mame, and so I spent a month with Lucy, holding my hand, going, "Come here, Patrick. I got to show you something." And she was just a sweet, sweet lady to me, because I was just a tiny little thing. How was she when you were working with her?
Well, so Mame was the project she had done before ours. So our director, George Schaefer, said, listen, Lucy's a little nervous, and I was Lucy. Oh my God. I used to write fan letters to her when I was a child, and I had her also on my wall, and she also wrote back. Well, of course it wasn't she, but it was a stamped I Love Lucy picture on, a signature, one of those. I'm sure you had your own, right? You had your 8x10, your agent or manager would just stamp, lots of love, Patrick. But at any rate, she hadn't worked since Mame. So the last time she had worked was on with you.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But
That's crazy.
Yeah, so she was a little nervous, but she got right into it. And of course, this was very different. It wasn't a comedy. And she was dressed up to be, they tried to cover up that lipstick line because it just was not. It was opposite of Mame. She was a very sort of
That was so
character
funny
piece.
because in Mame, obviously, it's a classic movie for beautiful, 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 very foggy around Lucy because they wanted her to look younger, and so Stone Pillow was exactly the opposite
Yeah,
of that.
exactly the opposite.
Wow. I
She,
remember the stupid thing was I was a kid, and so it would be like I would come in having seen I Love Lucy in reruns the night before,
oh
and
my
I
God.
shot this. It was in that's a long time because I shot that in '73. So she took
Yeah,
a big, huge break.
yeah, she
Um,
did.
but I would come in and I would ask her about the episode that was on last night, thinking that it's contemporary.
Oh my
And so
gosh.
she would talk to me about an episode like, oh, Stomping the Grapes was amazing. And she would tell me the
Wow.
whole story like it just had happened. Because again,
Oh my God.
little kid not getting it.
Stomping the Grapes was great. What about the chocolate? What about the Chocolate Factory? Was that
Right,
great
right. Yeah,
too?
how much chocolate did you get to eat?
Did
I
she
did
love
ask her
that
that.
too?
She
Those
goes,
are
I ate so
iconic
much chocolate I
episodes.
couldn't eat any more chocolate.
Well, she would smoke non-filter Pall Malls. Do you remember those? Or maybe it was
Yeah.
Lucky. No, I think it was Pall Malls. And the paper would get stuck to her, and she would wipe it off. And like you said, she always had her coffee, and she was like, so in the beginning, I was so nervous, like you were. I was
Yeah.
nervous, and I was, oh God, I just was so nervous. Anyway, so I thought I was going to get fired because the first couple times she said, I can't hear you, honey. I'm standing right here. If I can't hear you, how do you expect anyone else to hear you? And I'm thinking, who else? Like you're, you know.
Right.
But so I learned to project a little more, and I just did not want to disappoint her. And thank God shortly after we started and after she couldn't hear me, she said to me, I just want to tell you, I think you're perfect for the role, honey. You're just perfect. Oh, I was like, thank you for not
Live on that.
firing me. So, and she was such a pro. I have a great experience that I'd love to share about her. We
Yeah.
were shooting in Port Authority because we filmed in New York City. She, end of the day, she was layered down with, as a homeless woman in the winter, she had lots of layers on her. Uh, and we had to go again or something. Anyway, oh no, we're in the middle of the scene and she slides down the wall and faints. So I'm like, oh, that's Lucy. She's a brilliant comedian. She's improving. She's adding stuff. So I just got to go with it. Oh my gosh, Clara, are you okay? Nothing, nothing. And then finally I just go, camera's rolling, by the way. And I just say, George, I think she's fainted. And everyone goes, cut. They're freaking out. Lucille Ball is on the ground. Anyway, the ambulance come. They put her on this bench. They put her on and she comes to. And George Schaefer, our director, says, that's it. That's enough for today. She comes to and she's like, why are you taking the lights down, George? We got a day to finish. And he's like, no, Lucy, that's okay. You're not feeling well. It's been a long day. No, put the lights back up. We got to get her the other angle. We get the day because she was a producer and a pro. And that's what I
Right,
learned.
right.
That's what I learned from Mel and Lucy and Rob. These people grew up in this business and they knew. I mean, I worked so luckily in the beginning with pros from Michael J. Fox.
Uh-huh.
It was like, this is a job we got to get done, but you got to work, know your stuff, work on it. But this isn't playtime. But you also got to bring the fun.
Right.
So that just blew me away, that she came to and
And that's her
insisted that
first thought. Yeah.
yeah. Can you imagine? No.
I,
I would
you
be
know,
like,
it's like obviously she ran RKO or Desi Lou, but they bought RKO. I mean, it's exactly like what you're saying. She thinks like a producer,
yeah,
and she thinks like it's like I've had so many little intricate. I was a moppet. I was literally maybe 3 feet tall, and we're at Burbank Airport, and we're doing this big scene, and this is back with the big with the big lights, the arc lights that are all hot and I'm looking up
yeah.
at Lucy and I'm like, going, Mame, and she's looking down at me and she's like, well, what's wrong with this kid? He can't open his eyes. And she gets down. No one else had gotten down. She gets down. She goes, oh, Jesus Christ, you can't see anything. Guys, you got to do something with the light. It's like she was there to solve problems
Yes.
because she wanted, like you're saying, the
Yes.
project. the story. Wow,
She said to
I'm so
me,
glad you had that experience. I
she
mean, that's a
said to me,
huge deal.
listen, you're gonna have to learn how to take power naps. 10 minutes. She goes in a bus where I guess she traveled with or her bodyguard had or something, and she goes, I've learned I can still fall asleep in 10 minutes, and that's it. Then she comes back because you get maybe sometimes you only get 30 minutes for lunch, sometimes an hour, but you're
Right.
supposed to, and you're exhausted, so you want to scarf down your food, but you also got to sleep because you're so tired.
And
You've been
also,
up
I'll
since.
say this for you. It's so much harder for a woman on a movie set because you've got the hair, the makeup, the wardrobe, all the other things that are going on. For a guy, depends on the part, but for a guy, it's just like,
Yeah.
okay, I can get some time at lunch, but the dissembling of the wardrobe that you can't eat in,
Right.
protecting your hair, protecting your skin, doing all of those things, and
Yeah.
then the rebuilding of the whole character after lunch. So it's a
Yeah.
very short period of time.
And you could not, but then the audience is going to see the creases from your nap and the
Yep.
bags under your eyes and your exhaustion, and they want to see beauty. So it's like you're doing it. You're not just doing it because you're vain. You're doing it because your freaking career depends on it, so that they keep bringing you
Well, yeah,
back.
and it is part of the job. It's just I think I've always said it's just a lot harder for the ladies in that sense.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about Spaceballs for a couple reasons. So you're okay. So we do the sure thing. Had it come out before Spaceballs started working, before you started shooting, or was it just sort of like because you get on a roll sometimes you'll get 3 or 4 movies in before any one of them come out.
Oh, yeah. I think the Sure Thing had been out. Yeah, and then so you mean had stuff that I had done come out already? Yes, that's the answer to
Okay,
that.
okay.
Yeah,
So now you're working on Spaceballs,
yeah,
which going in, I would imagine everyone was, I mean, thrilled to do. Obviously, Mel Brooks at
yeah.
that time was killing it. It was right after Young Frankenstein and a bunch of other of his great, obviously Blazing Saddles, Young Frankenstein,
Yes.
all these different things. He was also producing like The Elephant Man and a couple of other things that just like. But him as a director, and again, weirdly that we know this because I had him as a director. I was again a young kid. I did Blazing Saddles and Maine back to back, so I was the
Wow.
same age at Warner Brothers. And every time I'd finish a scene, no matter what it was, he would run up and down the street in this western town screaming, "This kid's gonna be a star! He's gonna be a star!" And I thought it was really sweet, but not realizing what a funny joke that is, right? That here he's making this over this little kid.
Yeah.
But I remember it being so much fun doing that
Yes.
movie.
Because
Was
he's a
that the same
kid.
experience on
Yes.
Spaceballs?
Yes. I mean, did he do like 29 takes? Do you remember that? Because he likes to do takes. The thing about Mal that I remember is that he'd love to do a lot of takes, but he also got the film in under budget and ahead of schedule. And I don't know how he did it because we had huge sets and I mean, huge sets. And I talk about a costume. I was in a corset and layers of this dress. And, I had one of those slant boards they used in the olden days.
Right.
Like you have a slant board, you put your arms here, and
Yep.
I couldn't sit down in my dress. So, but it was a lot of fun. It was tons of fun. He loved to do a lot of takes. And one time I just remember saying, Mel, what do you want? Like, how can I do this differently so that you're happy? I thought he wasn't happy. He goes, oh, darling, you're perfect. But isn't this fun? Let's go again. So that's why he did a lot of takes, he just loved it. And, he has a ton of energy. And he would say that to the audience, to the crew sometimes when people, caught again. It takes a lot of work and a lot of hours and a lot of,
Yeah.
tools and this and that. And it is a job to create this illusion. But he would say to the crew, we're doing this for the kids. This isn't, so don't get too serious. This is for the kids. If it seems stupid to you, doesn't matter. It's for the kids. So that's what I loved. For me, he allowed me to just play, even though I had
Right.
the straight character. I just really was, I loved it. I loved doing it.
But again, and I know I seem like I'm fawning all over you because I am. But when you're doing a Spaceballs movie, it's a different energy band of a performance, and I thought that you also nailed it. Not that you couldn't, but that you're there with John Candy and Mel Brooks and legends of comedy. Sometimes people
Moranis.
who are known for drama don't
Yeah.
get comedy, but you totally understood it. You knew where your energy band was. I call it that. It's just where you're where you kind of sit. Did you have to adjust to that? Did you take in what they were doing, or how did you find it?
I feel like some of the stuff I did as a kid was like I did children's theater as a kid. I do kind of get a general feel, and I haven't done a ton or trained or take classes or anything, but I had worked with Rob Reiner, as we talked about, and there's that comedy, even though again I play the straight smart girl,
Right.
or this one, the straight rich princess. But Mel would say to me, "You're the important part of the comedy. We can't all be bouncing off the walls and being crazy. Like
Right.
you bring it home if you say it this way." So, of course, I took his direction and wanted to make sure I was pleasing him. But I also had to not go over the top because he really wanted me to play the straight one in a way, like the Princess Vespa. You know what I'm saying? So I
Right.
couldn't go too much into princess like this, uptight princess. I had to do it, but I also had
It's
to.
a very light touch because
It's
Allison
it's
could
a
be
fine
very
line.
similar to Princess Vespa, but they're not at all. Again, because
Yeah.
because the tone of the film is different.
Yeah.
I mean, you got John Candy. I have to ask John Candy, what was that like?
Yeah. John was amazing. John was so generous and but had been around the block. Like he's a smart man, and he was like, sign your own checks. Always sign your own checks. I'm like, okay. He had like advice like that, but then also and then he also tried to make me crack up when we were rolling. So when the three of us or the four of us, Dot Matrix was there too, but then Bill and Candy, Barf we were in the Winnebago, and we're all looking at this green screen, or maybe it was a blue screen back then. But and he was making the ears go and being just crazy, and they were improvising and saying stuff, and then I had to be the serious one. But right before they'd say action, he would keep like saying crazy stuff and being funny, and then I'd be like, I'd have to get all serious, and then when they'd say cut, I'd go, John, stop, please, if you have any mercy. Like, I'm the only one that have to be so serious here. So he, it was hard for him, I think, because that big suit, again, it was like we're in the desert,
Yeah.
and he's really wearing that, and the makeup was dripping and stuff. But he was so kind to everyone. At the end of our shoot of Spaceballs, he made these little, or had made a little plaque with a gold bone that was spray painted gold, and it said, "Spaceballs, love, John." And he sent it.
Oh.
He gave one to every single. Like, I still have mine, but everyone on the crew, not just
That's
the actors,
fantastic.
not just above the line, everyone. And those were big crews back in the 80s because there was a lot of money for movies, so there were
Yeah.
hundreds of people. Like, so that was the first time I experienced somebody like that, having that kind of special touch to do something for everybody like that, and so that you'd have something to remember their experience by. I thought that was really cool, and I did that later on a movie too, because John did that.
That's a great
Just
story.
to
It's
thank
so,
all
obviously you always want to hear. I had a friend who directed him in the not the Winnebago, Cool Runnings, the bobsled movie.
Oh, right.
He said he was a fantastic guy to be
Yeah.
around, but it's just great to hear it.
Yeah.
So, okay, I promise we won't take time on every single thing. You never get out of here. But the very next thing on my list here is you did a movie called Last Rites, where you play this Spanish femme fatale.
Right.
Again, I cannot tell you how close you and I have always come to meeting. Donald P. Bellisario created a show called Jag, which I starred in for 10 years. So I know Don
Oh.
really well. I also know that Don
Kind of looked like Don, the hair and the mustache and the beard.
Thank you. I'm trying to get the whole Don look.
Yeah.
At least the Don money. That's
Yeah,
what
that would be
I have.
nice, right?
Last Rites is like his only venture into movies, and from all of his different stories, he hated it. He hated like the whole experience, except I don't know if that meant the set or if it just meant with the studio. Because as a TV guy, you have all the power if you're Don. As a
Right.
movie guy, you're working for the studio. Now,
As a
I have
director
no-
of a movie, yeah.
right? I mean, he wrote it and he directed it. I think is this the only bad girl you played?
I have no idea. I have no
Yeah.
idea.
Gotcha.
I don't have my.
What was your experience on this film? I mean, again,
Well,
if you and Don didn't get along, I get it. I
no,
know Don, but
I
I
did
don't
not
know
get
exactly what he was like.
no, no, I did not get along with Don. I know a lot of it we shot in Mexico, so it was difficult, especially if you were the director of this big movie for MGM, I think it was. So, again, during that, if you're a director, a lot of people got sick. Montezuma's Revenge. You know, I'm the only one that didn't get sick because I was taking these Chinese herbs before I went, and I've been looking for them ever since. They're these little herbs you get from wherever I got them back then. Maybe Ron Tea Garden. I don't remember, but I took them and I didn't get sick. But he got so sick, he would just not show up, and the first AD would direct. I don't know if that was just one day at the very end. He just was like, I can't do this anymore. So I know he was
Right.
unhappy. But we had some great. What was his name? Famous DP Watkins, who did, I think, Out of Africa or something, like incredible lighting and the sets were beautiful and stuff. But yeah, I feel like, and Tom Berenger was great. But I do, and again, I was young and I was only an actor in it, so I don't know the whole behind the scenes. But I do know that being in Mexico, we were shot in New York City and we shot in Mexico, and there was a lot of night shooting. And I can totally understand why he would say he hated it. I didn't hate it, but I had a very different role than he did. I would like
Well,
show
no,
up
for
when
sure.
I
And
was
I mean, Don's always been like that. Rah rah rah. You're going to do this.
Really?
You're going to do that. And it's
Yeah.
just sort of like if it's not, he runs his sets, and I love working with him because it was like it was just always well run. But I didn't know
You can't do that when you're in different, in foreign countries. You're, like you said, on
Yeah.
a TV show, you're the head honcho. But if you're directing a movie, there's the studio, ahead of you, and you're in Mexico, and it's not even your language. And we were in those studios in Mexico City for some of it, but then we were way out in the country and so far away. I don't even know where. But yeah, that would have been challenging. But yeah, that was. But again, I was young. I don't remember. I was challenged just with the whole bad girl sexuality of it. I felt like that was a bit much for me, but I took the role because it was MGM and it was Tom Berenger, and I was told by my agents at the time, this was CAA, I think, were like, this would be a big movie, you should take it, right? And then the whole movie studio changed over the head, so they didn't even give it a proper release, but it happens all the time. Now I know,
Yeah, but right then, but MGM, that was like a classic story of the Italian guy Peretti or somebody buying the studio and then selling it and then buying it and selling it. It was a real tough time for them. But this leads to the other question that I was going to have during this period of your career, which I'm really fascinated by from an actor's point of view. So you've done the '80s thing where you're kind of playing the girlfriend, the smart brunette. You do The Fly too. Now, The Fly was a big hit. I'm wanting to know, when you're looking at a project, right? Are you looking at that as like from a business level, from a character level, from like, okay, this is going to be a big hit, coming off of Last Rites, which maybe wasn't, like you said, or how do you get into that as far as?
Well, The Fly 2, a couple things. Mel Brooks produced it, Brooks Films.
Oh, of course.
So I got a call from Mel. I knew that The Fly 1 was a big hit.
Yep.
And so I was like, what's not to do about it? And I also liked it because the part was different in my book. I think she was a scientist or something, learning about, it was about the genes and the genetic. This guy turned, Eric Stoltz, who I had known from acting class.
He played the son of
Jeff Goldblum?
Yeah, Jeff Goldblum. Exactly.
But he was the son from the first Fly, yeah.
Yeah.
And we were friends from Peggy Furry's acting class. And
Oh, you
so,
were. Oh, okay. That makes a lot of sense.
yeah, I was in that phenomenal acting
So you were
class,
over at the loft.
the Loft on La Brea.
Okay, so
And
my friend
her,
Dean Cameron is a friend of mine from summer
oh,
school.
Dean, of
Obviously,
course.
we've known each, and so he was there. But
Yeah.
it's just like it was
He was
the
like best
cool
friends with
place to
Eric.
study. What's that?
Yeah. He was best friends with Eric.
Yeah,
Eric
he and
Stoltz.
Tony. I didn't bother to mention Tony in the Sure Thing because I don't think you guys ever probably were on the same set. But
Well, Tony
yeah, I mean,
dated Meg for a while. My good Meg Ryan.
of
They met on
course.
Top Gun.
So it's so obviously
I
out there.
auditioned for
It's so
Top Gun. Oh, I screen tested for Top Gun. It was between, you and all the other guys I've worked with. Well, I
right, right.
auditioned, I screen tested for it, and it was me, Demi Moore, and Kelly McGillis. It was up to just the three of
Wow.
us. I know. And I wanted it so badly, of course. Like we all, when you get that close, you think, But obviously, Kelly McGillis got it, but that's just all that era. Like you said, I was auditioning for everything too, but I didn't get
Right.
that. I got the fly too. That's just the way your career
Right. Yeah.
works. Like who knows? And
Exactly.
you never know what anything's going to be. But like I said, Mel Brooks was producing it, and he talked about Chris Wallace or Wallace. I'm not sure how he
Uh-huh.
pronounces it. So Chris was the head of George Lucas's ILM. He did all the special effects, and he was a big special effects guy. And because The Fly 2 is going to be special effects, he came on to direct. So it just seemed like these elements were cool elements to be a part of, and it was a lead in a movie. And
Was this your
big
first
budgeted
offer as far as
studio
like
movie.
just having someone call you and say we want you to do this?
Oh, God, I don't remember if it was my first.
Right.
Probably, maybe. I don't know.
That's a good feeling.
Yeah. But anyway, again, anything that I do, like anything that anyone does, when you get a part and and doing the actual project is one experience, and nobody knows how it's going to come out. There are things that people think are the biggest flop, forget it, straight to video, and it turns out being a cult thing, or it becomes like the biggest hit ever. That just happens all the time. But the doing of something, when you're young and someone says, go up to Vancouver for 2 months and we're going to do this and that, and you're going to do, okay, that sounds great. Like I didn't have that much
Yeah. And it
strategy.
did really well. I mean, look, people don't. Fly 2 did very well. I looked up box office on all this stuff, and it's dynamite. Um, Staying Together was another movie that I read for. I did not get it. I'm still waiting. Gross Anatomy. Now, you did Vision Quest, but did you work with Matthew on that, or was it?
Yeah. I think
Okay.
all of my scenes were with Matthew, right? Wasn't
So
that so?
then,
Matt,
so you guys were like reunited, kind of on
yeah.
this, right?
So I did. So Vision Quest was first,
Right.
and I had just a small part in that. I wrote for the high school paper, and I had a few scenes with Matthew, and we hung out on that. I was on set a lot. I was one of those characters that was in crowd scenes, like supporting his wrestling and stuff. So I was on set a lot, and then I was offered the Gross Anatomy, and they didn't have a guy. And then they brought Matthew in to play the guy. And I was like, all right, like we get to work again. It was only a few years later, I think. Maybe 5 years later. I don't know. Maybe more.
Right.
But it was really fun and Christine Lottie was in it. So I thought, oh, that'll bring it gravitas. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, that was a Disney movie, I think.
Yeah, that's when they had that Touchstone banner where everything
Oh,
was
right.
the adult movies were through Touchstone, and it was
Yeah.
again towards the end of the '80s and '90s. It was the movie industry was just so booming that there was Tom
Yeah.
Eberhard was over there, and he was the guy that
Yes.
wrote and directed that, and he did
Yes, right.
Honey I Shrunk the Kids movies and a bunch of other stuff.
Yeah.
So now we're here at Melrose, which Melrose Monday for me, and I was dating a girl that became my wife. We'd watch Melrose, and it was. I would like to sit here, and I'm sure that you're finding this out on your podcast, and talk to you about the intricacies of Melrose.
Yeah.
I don't remember anything about it except that I couldn't stop watching it. It was like I remember that each week something more bizarre would happen, but like to try to remember the storylines, it's like one of my questions. You kind of answered it. Can you remember any of these storylines that you guys had to do?
No, I mean the fact that Courtney Thorne Smith and Laura and I just spent the last year watching the whole first season. We got through it. We got to the last episode, and had to watch every episode again. So we got to
Right.
see, and we were just couldn't wait to come back on to come to our podcast and go, can you believe this happened? Like, what? Do you remember this? No. Why would I remember that? Because we shot 30 something, episodes a year, and also it was
let me help
35 years
people
ago.
understand that. So right now, a Netflix series will shoot like 6 episodes, take
Yeah.
5 years off because it's so exhausting. A regular season of television, full freight, back in the 70s was 22 to 24 episodes.
Right.
And that's packed. How did you do 35? I mean, were you
Yes.
down to, you must have been block shooting episodes, right?
So twice a year, Aaron Spelling had us do double ups. And I think he invented it because he wanted to get to syndication faster. So you get to syndication after you shoot, I think, 100 episodes of something. And that's when his big money would come in. So twice a year, he would have 2 crews, 2 directors, 2 crews, 2 locations, 2 call sheets, and every actor would do 2 at a time for about 3 or 4 in a row. So that way we went from that 22 season, we would add,
Additional
8,
10 easily.
an additional 10. So we did it 2 times a year, maybe for 5 in a row. I don't know. But it was, yes, exhausting. But as Chip Hayes came on to our podcast and said, but the paycheck was good, right? And we're like, yeah, it was good. But we also were exhausted. But it was good. It was good. So, but it was
leads to the
tricky.
other question, like Aaron Spelling obviously was the big, like the head of the thing, but Darren Star was a Darren Star show. Well,
Yeah.
was there a power dynamic there, or was it definitely Aaron and then Darren worked for Aaron and you worked for Darren?
Oh, no, I felt like we worked for Aaron, and Darren was he was on the creative team with us. Darren
Got it.
was,
Okay. So you were all working for Aaron.
writing it and creating it. He'd be writing it. We were all working for Aaron for sure. That's how I felt from our point of view.
So, like I said, I used to hang out with Doug Savant. I know Courtney, and so I was well into this show. And it's one of those shows where, I mean, obviously you know better than I do. When people think of Melrose, it's like Melrose first episode wasn't Melrose that was
When it became famous, right?
right. It was like it took a while. They had a lot to add, including your character. Joe didn't show up until
15, episode
Yeah.
15 of the first season. Yeah.
And again, you're the well put together brunette, which again on a tone
I am
level,
a brunette, Peter. I
Well,
mean,
this is
Patrick.
true.
Sorry, Patrick. I am a brunette. So I'm going to be some variation of a brunette usually.
Right, of course, but it's like heaven forbids a brunette can be crazy.
Yeah,
right?
I know.
It always had to be how many blondes on that show?
Crazy brunette. I know. I want to play that. I want to play that for sure. Yeah, she
And
was.
so
definitely
you joined the
first
show as kind of like the level-headed Joe who has photography
Yeah.
and she's got a real passion for it.
Yeah.
And then all this crazy shit starts happening. When you're doing these double ups and when you're seeing these scripts as an actor, usually you want to know kind of like what happened before and what happens
Yeah.
afterward. Does that go out the window? How do you prepare for these crazy storylines?
It's kind of exciting because for me, every script I would get, I would just be, they would just like, push the bar even higher. Like you're going, wait, what? I'm going to do what? So I was always looking forward to the next one. What do I get to do? Are you kidding me? It was so crazy high, what they would have us do. But then, 8 days later, you're at the end of it and you're like, okay, what's next? What's next? Like I always loved getting the scripts, but you also couldn't believe it. And then of course, a TV show starts to repeat itself if it's on that long. And that was on, like year after year, 32 episodes. What are you going to come up with next? And
Right.
we learned a lot having the producer. We had 2 producers on our podcast this year, and we learned a lot. They were both soap guys. soap opera, like,
Okay.
Young and the Restless and Bold and the Beautiful and maybe General Hospital. I don't know, but I don't remember. But they said to us up front, we put you through the soap opera mill. We had to like do this and that, and for the audience.
Right. Well,
So
it's like any type of addiction. You're looking for that hit of crazy. I remember that episode. The one that like really locked me in was when Kimberly takes off her hair and she's got a
yeah,
big scar.
Scar.
And then it just from ever after that, I was like, this show is fucking nuts. And
What
then you
about in
break through
season?
the windows looking for your baby, carrying around a
Yes,
baby.
yes, I break through the window. What about when, so Laura plays Sydney and Jane, played by Josie Bissett. So they're two sisters, and they kill Richard, played by Patrick Muldoon, and they
Right?
bury him. And at the end of the scene, which I think is the end of the season, his hand comes up through the grave, and it's like this, it's like a horror film, and you're just like, and everyone was just. I just love the fun that everybody's having, the people that were writing it, the people that, and we all got along. That's why we had every single one of those actors on our podcast this year. Still the
That's
place if
great.
anyone wants to go here. But they all came back on because we're all still in touch and we had a blast because it
Was
was
there anything you
crazy.
read and you go, I am not doing that? Or was it just all goofy fun?
No, I didn't have anything that I didn't want to do. I loved the drama. I loved doing all the crazy stuff. I got tired of it after a while because it was very repetitious. And also, Joe came on, like you said, like kind of together and strong. I mean, she's had a
Right.
gun. She was like, rode her motorcycle for God's sakes. Like she was a tough chick from New York. And then I felt like they easily and kind of they just went down this road with her that she was just victimized and picked all these bad boys. And so, you know, it was like
Yeah.
being beaten up by it was Dan Cortez, I think, and then somebody else was, thrown around by him, and it was just, listen, it bought the house in Laurel Canyon that you so lovely came over and helped
No, what's
bring
work
it
is
back to the
work.
beginning.
But I get it. It's like when with Jag we were on 10 years. You guys were on probably did as more episodes than we did. But you run out of cases, and so yeah, you end up having to do the same type of thing.
Right.
But
They
when
just
you're
will
doing
tweak something.
when you're doing that show, though, it becomes like this phenomenon. Okay, so the work is the work. You're out in Valencia somewhere, sweating your balls off, trying to get looking like you're all glamorous. And then you guys are on the cover of Rolling Stone. Everyone's talking about it. What is that like different from the actual work? Is there? It's kind of like a fake world of publicity. It's still real because you're all still really doing the work, but it's
Right.
not the work. What was it like
Yeah.
being in the middle of a phenomenon?
Yeah, like that. Well, it was funny because in the beginning, nobody knew it was a hit. None of us working on the show knew it was a hit because we were driving out to Valencia before the sun came up, shooting, and there were no cell phones. It wasn't like I could Instagram and go, "Wow, wow, we're on the cover of this again today." So
Right.
you were really shut off from the world. You're just working. All those episodes all year long. We got Christmas off, and during the hiatus, a couple years, I did in the spring, between May and June, I did a couple of movies of the week or something. So you're just working, and it wasn't until maybe a year it just became this phenomenon, and then we were asked to do more cover shoots and magazine shoots, and then by the time we did like Rolling Stone, we were like, what is happening? And so yeah, you're right, it's two things, but that's what that's what this business is, and I think that a lot of people, it's easy to get messed up by that because it's like theater and acting and movies is all illusion, but we go to work, we put in the hours, you have to
Right.
hammer this and paint the sets and do this and put on the costume, do the makeup, lights, and and then if you get too caught up in it having to be that special magic, you're going to get screwed up because that doesn't last. It's there for a moment, for a premiere, for when you're doing a talk show, when you're doing, red carpet, and then it's over. and people, but it stays in the zeitgeist is forever. So your face becomes famous or whatever for a while,
Right.
and then it fades. And you just got to remember, you're there to like, hammer the nails, build a set, put on your wardrobe, learn your lines. It's a job, and you can't get too attached to the other. You go along, and again, the three of us were discussing that on our podcast all these years later. We wish that we would have enjoyed that part of it more back then.
We'll be back after these messages.
Hey there, I'm Patrick Labyorteaux, and I've been an actor since I was a little kid, so I know what it's like to be a little kid actor. So I have a class here called Youth Weekly, and that meets every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, and it is an awesome class if you are young and want to learn all about acting. We have a great set of kids, and it's taught on Zoom, so you can do it from anywhere. You can do it on your phone, you can do it on your laptop, on an iPad. It's awesome. I've had kids take a class while they were in the car coming back from soccer practice. I swear to you. So if acting is in your blood, come to workingactorschool.com and check out the Youth Weekly class every Tuesday at 5:30 p.m. Pacific. I'll see you there.
Act 3, present day.
You did American Dreams, you did Beautiful People, you did One Tree Hill. We stole Jackson Brundage from you when we produced a show called See Dad Run. He was one of our kids on the show.
Oh.
You worked with Virginia Madsen in American Dreams. Was that, again, a reunion with Modern Girls, or was that...
Well, I didn't
work
work
with
with
her
her
in
on
it.
American Dreams. We didn't have
Okay,
anything.
you were just both in it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, look, listen, I'm kept you here a long time.
If
we
you're going
can
to
do
go
the
through every single thing, we're going to be here till 5 o'clock because
Exactly.
I'm that old. I'm that old,
you-
Patrick.
No, and you look amazing. Okay, so here's the one quote I have, or one question I have for you on the other side of this. Every time you do a TV show, and again, if you're doing 32 episodes a year, you're in everyone's home. You're all over their face. You're all over their place. After Melrose, listen to this. You did Changing Hearts, Gone Missing, Signed, Sealed, Delivered, Monkey in the Middle, When Duty Calls, Hindsight, Occupy, Alice, Summer, Forever Beyond Paradise, Who's Driving Doug? I like that. Search Engines, Remarkable Life, Those Left Behind, Abducted, Love, Heartbeats, and my favorite, The Wrong Babysitter, Witness Unprotected.
Those are my lifetime years.
These are, it goes on and on, right? It's a lifetime.
I know.
And then that
Lifetime
person will
years.
hit you up in the mall, and my son's always next to me, and they go, "Oh, you were in Melrose. Do you still act?"
Yeah. I
Or,
get that.
What have you done? What have you done since? And you're sitting
Yeah.
there going, and then you maybe list off a few things, hoping that their eyes kind of light up, that they recognize it, and you're put in this weird position of like having to justify. Like, and
You're put in this position to know their taste and how old they are. Like
Right.
you have to, and I kind of suss them up and I go, let's see, what were they in from 95 to, how old were they in 92 to 95? Okay. No, that would be too young. Maybe they know me from, So
Right.
I have the three big things I'm recognized for. Usually it's either, four things like Sure Thing, Spaceballs, Melrose Place, and One Tree Hill. Those are the big ones. Or someone will
Okay.
say, if it's a woman my age, she'll say, "Oh, I love you in the Lifetime movies." But
Right.
it's you have to kind of like narrow them down. So I just go,
Yeah, I have my four are Little House, Three Ninjas, Ski School, which is definitely, if he's got his ball cap backwards, it's Ski School, or Jag. I mean, and but it's like
Yeah.
you look at the person and you kind of you make a
Yeah.
judgment. Okay, so
Yeah.
here's a tough question, and then we'll get into the real questions. Of those four, what's your favorite? It's a
I
hard
don't have a
question.
favorite of those four. I don't have a favorite at all of those four. I have
What was your
because I
favorite
was so,
experience, maybe?
but I was so different. I mean, I was like 19
Yeah.
in 20 in my 20s to Melrose Place. So I did a lot in the 80s and I was so young. And then, Melrose Place was fantastic because it was 4 years of consistent work and being needed and being part of a crew family, a TV family. And I just freaking loved it. I'm like a workaholic. If anything, I just love to work. So that was amazing. The minutia of it, yeah, there were pains and this and that and little things, but I would get tired of it. I'd get tired, period. I'd want more creativity maybe. But then, having done all those other things, and I've worked, as you very well noted, pretty consistently, whether it's something that people have seen or not.
Where was the other one? You did 3 other TV shows: One Tree Hill, Beautiful People, American Dreams. All of them, American Dreams, I think, was like 18 episodes. Beautiful People was like 40, or no, One Tree Hill was like 40. Beautiful People is just you and your daughters.
Yeah, Tori DeVito.
And so it's not like, any 3 of those, like being the star of one series. So
Yeah.
you're all over the place.
So and then One Tree Hill I loved because we were shooting, and so I got to pretty much live and work out of North Carolina, Wilmington, North Carolina. And I've continued to love that experience because the fans are such avid fans that we go to these conventions and reunions every single year. They do them twice a year because there's all over the world they love One Tree Hill. And I love the cast because when I was on it, there were these younger women and guys, and now they've grown into these incredible forces of nature and game changers. So I love, we're still connected. So I love that experience. But I only love that experience because of the.
Have you done more One Tree Hill conventions than Melrose conventions?
Yeah, Melrose, for some reason, we went to one 90s con and we were not asked back to the other year, the one in Connecticut. They did 90210. So, and Melrose in general, I do a couple of those I've done them with Grant and Josie and Laura, and Heather's starting to do them now. And I have one coming up in Washington, and Heather Locklear and Josie Bissett will be there. But I mostly do the cons on my own for Spaceballs. And then very few people, I think very few Melrose fans go to cons, basically. But now they're becoming so popular that I think they're probably going to open up to more 90s stuff.
We'll be back after these messages. Hey, I'm Patrick Labyorteaux, and I play an actor on TV, and I've been doing this for a long, long time. And I know what it's like if you are in a class with people, and sometimes you just want to have that one-on-one connection with the person that you're working with to go over, I don't know, a particular scene, or maybe you have an audition, or maybe you just want the privacy to try stuff that you don't really know is going to work and not have anyone look at you. Well, I have the perfect solution for you. It's called One-on-One with Patrick Labyorteaux. You can book your time at workingactorschool.com, and it's just me and you for an hour going over whatever it is you want to work on, breaking down the script, talking about character, figuring out your intention, the spine of the scene, everything that goes in to making a dynamite performance. So if you're interested in acting and want that one-on-one personal attention, check out One-on-One with Patrick Labyorteaux. You can find all the information you need at workingactorschool.com. Act 4, questions.
These are questions my wife has come with called Tina's Gotta Know. Tina's Gotta Know. The first question is, that's showbiz. What is the most Hollywood moment in your life?
Well, I have one, but I'm not going to say it. I have one, but I'm not going to say it. Hollywood moment. I guess when Hollywood and, the White House converged, like getting the invite to the president's, when I was in Melrose Place, we were invited to President Clinton's inauguration and being at the what's the big conference they have with all the media there? They have it every year. Anyway.
The White House press.
Yeah, the press. Yeah, that. And being flown on a company jet, whether it's Fox or Warner Brothers, to do, that kind of thing. That's always very Hollywood to me. I step on these private planes. Not that I've done it a ton, but it's like, you're just like, wow, okay. And again, you finish that experience and you're back on the set and they just want you in makeup at 5 a.m. and get over yourself. You know what I mean? Like, that's just...
Exactly.
That's just it. It's just the way it is.
That's why it's a Hollywood moment. It's not a Hollywood lifestyle.
Yeah.
All right. Question 2, that's showbiz. Part 2, what's the most embarrassing Hollywood moment in your life?
I don't know. Embarrassing? I don't know.
For me, I tell a story where I had just I'd just been told I didn't get a part, probably Vision Quest or something you were in. And I'm going down the elevator at my agency, and this guy's running down the hallway, wants me to hold the elevator, and I'm just feeling like a horrible negative person, and I let the elevator close on this guy's face. And as Francis Ford Coppola
You're like,
is
I don't
running
wanna-
towards the elevator, I'm realizing I've just closed the door on Francis Ford Coppola.
Oh my God. Are you like pushing the door shut? Close, close, close,
Totally
close, close.
pushing the button and it's not working. And it's like, so I would say that was my most embarrassing moment.
Yes.
But I mean, something, it happens. It happens. Life
It does happen. It does happen. I don't know what mine would be. I really don't. I've never closed the door on anyone's face like that, but that's
Because
pretty-
you're a saint. Okay, no worries. We move on to the third one. Show me the money. Okay, so what is your biggest missed financial opportunity? Now, I'm not looking for dollars or cents, but like in this business, it's always like somebody's got a lead on something or the other, and sometimes you'll just go, oh, I wish I had done blank.
Well, I wish I were in the room when Rob Lowe was offered shares of Starbucks. That would have been nice. I would have gone, Rob, you're gonna buy a coffee shop? He's like, yeah, whatever. I don't know. Maybe he knew, or whoever else was down on the ground floor of that. That would have been nice, but I wasn't in that room. Something like that, these.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like, that's a big one, right? Like, and I didn't know. I watch the Beverly Hills Housewives, and Jennifer Tilly's on it, and I've always just known Jennifer as like an actress. I've seen her in that, and she was in some movies that I know, but she's also a huge poker player. But then I watched The Housewives, and has come on at the last year, and she was married to or in relationship with the guy who created The Simpsons. So when they split, she got half of The Simpsons. So needless to say, her bags are the nicest on the entire show of all the Beverly Hills Housewives. She walks in and says, oh, this is one of a kind, like made from whoever himself. So that was I didn't have that break either. I don't know what happened.
You were too busy working. They just had you on set all the time.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let's move on to show and tell. Number 4. As a teenager, what was the favorite poster in your room and how'd you get it?
So I had posters on my wall where Peggy Lipton and Cher, and those are the ones I had as a teenager. Oh no, I lie. I think I had Barry Manilow. I was such a nerd. But I loved Barry Manilow as a kid.
Barry Manilow was huge. I mean, there wasn't a key change around that he didn't create.
I mean, come on. And then when I learned, he used to write jingles, like commercial jingles. He's just an amazing songwriter, and all those hit after hit. Copacabana, Mandy, all of them. Are you kidding me? Anyway, so I may have had him actually on my pillowcase too, but that's embarrassing. So go on. What's the next question?
Okay, showdown. What's the best thing you've ever done? The worst thing you've ever done? Professionally, not in life. I don't want to hear about any murders.
Okay, good. Well, I think like you kind of like brought up everything I did in the beginning, and that was a pretty good start off to a career. I think the best thing I ever did was not go to NYU because of the flasher that I had on the West Side Highway, and so I listened to him. Bye, and coming out to LA, which. By the way, I didn't even tell you, I don't know if you know this little tidbit, but I met Darren Star in the housing office at UCLA. Then we became roommates because he said to me, oh, are you looking for a place to live? I have a 2-bedroom apartment right off campus. Maybe you can get a roommate and I can get a roommate. And I said, sure. So I got another roommate and lived with Darren Star for a year. And then 8 years later, he invited me to come, or 10 years later, he invited me to come do Melrose Place. So that paid off. Wow. That was a good decision.
That's a great answer.
That's a great answer. That's
so
cool.
What would be the worst? What was your worst experience? You don't have to name names of people if you don't want, but like, did you have, you seem pretty grateful.
I'm grateful. I'm definitely grateful. Worst experience, my God. No, don't get me wrong. I've had some bad ones, and I've pulled them up in acting class over the years, that horrible. And you smell it, and then you taste it, and then you get indigestion. You're like, oh, why do I have to relive this shit? And you're like, oh yeah, I'm an actor. I'll use it someday. Actually, that reminds me, remember I told you I was at ACT Young Conservatory when I was 14 in San Francisco.
Yeah.
I got a job. Can you work at 14? I guess so. Child labor laws didn't exist. Anyway, I worked at this deli, and it was a famous deli, David's Deli, right there on Geary Street. And I couldn't make a sandwich. He put me in the back to peel boiled eggs, or he kept me in the basement, like the scary ass, basement that went downstairs, and there was dirt on the wall, like dirt and brick. And I had to slice pastrami for the people that made this, send them up. And I just remember going and then I remembered that Laurence Olivier had said, don't regret anything you have in life, because even the bad stuff you can use for your craft. So I'm there slicing this, going, I'm Laurence Olivier, but just use this. I'm going to be professional. Just use this horrible. And I just wanted to quit, but I just used it. And then it was just horrible. But I probably used it later at some point.
That's great. I love it. I'm sure Laurence Olivier said, I wasn't talking about that, dear.
I would have quit, you dummy.
That's horrible.
Dumb.
Number 6, no show. What part did you really, really want but just didn't get?
I wanted Top Gun, for sure. I mean, God, as an actor, as you know, you audition for everything, and I wanted everything I auditioned for, because, so I really wanted that. I didn't get it. What were the other big ones that I wanted that I didn't get? I wanted to work with Rob Reiner again in Robin Hood, or whatever he did. The Princess Bride.
Oh, yeah.
He did. And Robin Wright got it. The blonde, beautiful one. But I wanted that. And I thought, oh, that'll be easy. I've already worked with him. He loves me. Well, yeah. They didn't want a brunette. They didn't want the smart brunette. They wanted the princess blonde.
The manic pixie.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
You can't, like you said, you can't look. I look at my wife has hair that's very similar to yours, and she'll come into the room and she'll go, oh, she's very angry today. Like there's this whole, other creature that, and I think that you have that type of hair where it's like, it's a whole other character all by itself that you're working with.
Yeah.
Okay, so where were we? Number 7, your favorite show. What movie has most influenced you?
I loved, and it's weird, it's such a sad movie, but it won a million Oscars and nominations, but Kramer versus Kramer of 1980, I think it was. I wasn't even in the business yet. I was, I think, in high school, and just their acting. As you know, I was acting before that. I was in theater departments and stuff, and I just loved Dustin Hoffman, and this newcomer, Meryl Streep, was so real, and the tears, it was all so real, and the boy, Justin Henry, this kid did you audition for that? You probably did.
No, I did. It was shot in New York, so they didn't bother.
He was so. You would have been so much better.
Thank you.
You're welcome. But I love that movie, and I've loved it ever since, because it's brilliant acting, really. I love to watch.
I think Meryl Streep's whole career has been of what she is holding back more than what she's giving, which is why she always feels so powerful. It's always like you see what's on top, but there's so much below that she's holding down.
Yeah, and I think she started out that way, but I also feel like she's also, her bravery or her expansion is so brilliant, because she's also done the extroverted, like the Mamma Mia's, or where she plays that horrible opera singer with Hugh
Florence
Grant.
Jenkins.
Yes, and she's so like, woo, and she plays all these characters. So she was, like you say, very internal when she started, right? French Lieutenant's Woman, all of it, and then later she just was like, fuck that, I'm gonna enjoy myself, to Murders in the Building, she's just
And
so
she's
I
just
love
so
that
good
about
that
her.
she can pull that off. That's not
Well, because it's very tempting as an actor to see what worked and to stick with that, right? Because if you have like a sweet spot of being just natural, it's dangerous, because it feels like, oh, you know what you're doing, but you want to always push yourself. Like I'm always reminding myself, what are you doing specifically? What are you doing specifically? You can't just be like natural, because that gets, boring. You want to like,
This
it
this
takes,
isn't on the list, but I'm curious. Do you have like an idea of a part now as an actor? Because obviously, all of us actors, including yourself, you're a much better actor than you were when you started because you have all these other experiences. Is there any type of part that you would just love to do right now and put it out there to the universe? Like,
oh
I know
yeah.
this
I
woman.
mean,
What would you?
I would
What would
love
be like
to,
a dream part for you?
a badass, extroverted badass woman, a strong, I would love to do comedy. I would I would love to do comedy. Yeah, even when I was doing One Tree Hill, I would say, "Can I just make her like tipsy from a martini lunch, please, or something?" Even though she was like this very strong kind of mean woman, I would always want to put something in because I just love a little edge to it.
All
So,
right,
and
so there you go.
this,
That's what you need to get cast as.
all
And
right.
so number 8, what is the movie that you rewatch the most? For me, it's a movie called Soap Dish, which no one knows about, but I
Oh,
love.
well, I know Soap Dish. Yeah.
I
Well,
just think it's
anything
so
Sally
funny.
Field is in, my God. I gotta watch
Yeah.
that actually. I gotta watch that. I haven't
I
seen
just
that
love
in
it because
forever.
Kevin Kline was my guy in my head of like, oh, that's the guy. He did Sophie's Choice, and he also does Fish Called Wanda. And in this movie, he plays
He's
an
so
actor.
good.
Obviously, in his apartment in New York, every single frame that's on the wall or on the table is a picture of him.
Oh my God. When were you in his apartment in New York?
No, no, in the movie. In the
Oh,
movie.
in the movie. I thought in real life. Okay.
No, no, God, I don't
That
know
would
the
be
guy.
weird.
But so like, do you rewatch movies at all?
Not really. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think what I've rewatched. Uh, we love Silver Linings Playbook.
Uh huh.
We've watched that a few times. We just watched Green Book again. I like that movie a lot. Um, and of course, most of my career, I would watch anything Meryl Streep was in because I used to say my research was watching Meryl Streep movies, just
Yeah.
to just to tune in to like her whatever she's got going. Like you say, she holds it back. She doesn't like show you everything, and that's hard to do. So I would just
Yeah.
watch her stuff.
Excellent.
Postcards from the Edge, which she was in with the Carrie Fisher one. That was so
Love
good.
that movie. I
Yeah, that
love
was a
that
good
movie.
one. Yeah,
She's so good in
watched
that
that over and
movie,
over.
and because I don't know either one of the ladies, but you get the sense that that's the vibe that Carrie Fisher has.
Yeah.
Which I guess let me ask that question. Obviously, you're playing Princess Leia, a version of that. Have you ever met Carrie Fisher? Did you guys ever talk about that or no?
I met Carrie Fisher, I think just once, and uh, she was doing her one-woman show, Wishful Drinking, in Berkeley, and I went. She was doing it at Berkeley Rep, and I was up there for something, and I got tickets to that, and I went backstage to meet her. She says, "Oh, look at you! It's me. You played me." I'm like, "I did. Hi." And she's like, "Hey, how you doing?" And you know,
It's a
but I
very good
loved
Carrie
her.
Fisher.
Yeah. So, but I have friends all who know her. She used to have fabulous parties in the Hollywood Hills that I never went to, but I just had my parties where you would show up. Thank you for
Which is the
coming.
most fabulous Hollywood party I've ever been to. So, final question. Usually on this show, I work with people. I talk to people that I know. So this is kind of an unfair question, but I still have to ask it. What is your favorite performance of mine?
Of yours?
Yeah, I
I wish
doubt
my
you even know
friend
of it.
I wish my friend Brian was on because but I guess I would have to say the cliche would be Little House.
Sure,
Just because I remember
absolutely.
seeing you as a little kid from that, the blue eyes and everything. But that's all I really have for you. I'm sorry to say.
Any answer is a good answer.
But
The
I
fact
got
that
you
you
in
know that I was
person,
on Little
don't
House is
forget.
a win.
I got you in person when you showed up at my door when I have a towel on my head. What were you thinking?
Are you kidding me? I can't say on this family podcast.
Epilogue.
Now, if we can just get you and Kuzak together for the trip back to New York. For, the
You know
Sure
what?
Thing
I've
tour.
seen John at these. We've done a couple conventions, and he just happens to be there. And and he lives back in Chicago and stuff. But I would love. Not only would I love to do a sequel to just The Sure Thing, I also would love. I know who I'd love to write it, and he said he would love to write it. Darren Star.
Oh, they'd be great.
Be great.
That'd be great.
So I got to get
look,
on him.
you
He's
got-
so freaking
what-
busy.
Well, I mean, that's his fault.
I'm gonna email him and ask him would he do it and then I have to get John to do it. I don't know if John would do it. He's pretty. I don't know. He's pretty.
I mean, he's got to have something. Look, I get it. He's done a lot of movies, but he did a Hot Tub Time Machine too.
I know.
Why not The Sure Thing?
I
A
mean, I
not
think
so
it'd be
sure
amazing.
thing.
The not so sure thing. I think it would be amazing. It would be so fun. And by the
Great.
way,
I
I've
mean,
been told.
obviously it's built in. Something's wrong with the kids or something. You got to get together. You got to get across the country. I mean, you could. It's just I can see it already. But
Listen,
I would love it.
Yeah, I would too.
Let Darren know that
maybe I'll
I'm
get
really
on
for it.
And I'm gonna and I'm gonna I'll do all the powers to get you in it. Damn it! We're gonna work together.
Well, no, I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't want to
gonna work
jinx
together.
anything.
The last
It seems
thing I
like
do.
You're doing fine. You're doing fine if I audition for it and then don't get it. It seems
No,
as
you
being
need to be
the way
in
to
it.
go.
No. We're grown-ups now. Enough of that BS.
There we go. Hey, Daphne, I can't thank you enough for doing this. This has been a blast. I took up so much of your time. I was literally a fan just asking every single question that I wanted to ask, and you were so kind. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you for helping me set up a party all those years ago. You never know. I love it. No, really, I love it. And I love that my friend who's such a fan of your show, Brian, told me to, he's like, you got to reach out to this guy. Come on. He's so great. He has a great story. He's such a good guy. He's just such a big fan of yours. So thank you. Thank you.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux, Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.
Hey, everybody. I'm so glad that you're enjoying the podcast and checking it out. It is an audio podcast wherever you get your audio podcast, and it's a video podcast over on YouTube. My socials are all patrick.labyorteaux, and that is on Instagram, on YouTube, on TikTok. I'm everywhere. If you want information on the school, you can go to workingactorsschool.com. We have classes going all the time. It's a lot of fun. I suggest you check it out. Hey, we'll see you next time.
It's the Patrick Labyorteaux, Patrick Labyorteaux. He's the one you gotta know.